Hi everyone, Josh here from Raising the Profit. Hope you can hear me loud and clear. It is Wednesday the 22nd of July. I'm recording this at 20 past 10. I have had a go on Vince the Prince at 4 to 1, which I thought was an okay price in this race. And I'll kind of talk through why I like him. As is often the case in these videos, I'm within the excellent GG's Gold. If I just set the settings here to flat handicaps, this is a history across the board. I like his course form, stands out. He's 3 from 11 around here. It seems to be the track where he performs best. Distance is fine. Class is fine, and is the interesting angle, I suppose. At Catterick in class 6s over this distance. He is 2 from 2, and the last of those was in August 2024 when he bolted up by 3.5 lengths off 66. He's off 64 here, so he's £2 lower. He ran at Musselburgh after that, and they were actually his last runs in class 6 contests because he went up in the weights. And it's taken him a while until he could get back into this class. But he drops from running in class 5s and class 4s for an age into this class 6 for the first time, which I suppose is the main angle and caught my eye. He's £9 below his peak winning rating, which clearly indicates he has a little bit to work with. You can see there's some, the odd positive for some of the others. And others have won at the class and one at a higher class. King's Merchant, if I just select this, and again, one of the great things, you can change all these different settings here. You can see those that have form above this class, Ideal Guest being one of those, Vince the Prince, King's Merchant and Gressington, who has come a long way down the weights and may be interesting on that score if he revives. Yes, on the Instant Expert kind of dashboard in front of you, those various things I've just touched on did interest me. Like I said, he's run here 11 times, 2 from 2 at class 6, has won a class 4 as well back in October. That was off October 24. That was off 73, and recently running in class 5s around here. It's rare for him to run a bad race at this track, so fingers crossed. I can obviously do the place stats as well, and if I wanted to look at the last 2 years rather than going back to the last 5, you can see there again on the win and place score, he ticks a lot of boxes, a lot of green. In fact, in the last couple of years, he's only been out the frame 3 times in 10 starts around here, which again is a big positive. If I just look at the race card, a couple of things to note and are interesting. They changed the headgear, which is never a bad thing in my opinion, especially with handicappers as they get a bit older. He may well not be a early to mid 70s horse anymore, but he's definitely got wins in him off this mark. The thing that stood out with his recent efforts here, and I always like to tick a few boxes, there's a few hot form elements. There's this then what feature down here, and I always like horses who have been running in races which have produced future winners. Especially if those horses are just in front of them or just behind them, indicating they ran well against in-form rivals who were well handicapped, who have then gone on to frank the form. And I do think that's an important box to tick, and GG's obviously makes that very easy. If I just click on, this was his first couple of runs of the season when he was running around here off £4 higher, not beaten far at all. In the first of those, he bumped into Evocative Spark, who won 2 of his next 3. He ran off 60 here, and within 4 starts was rated £11 higher. Jockey was also claiming 5 that day, so in my view, can mark that up. There was a big gap back to the rest, which again I think is always a positive, and even the 4th, who was well beaten, won a few starts later as well, so that was a positive. Evocative Spark again, who he bumped into, who was clearly still well handicapped on when they met on this second time as well, and then like I said, he won again. Interesting, Tatley Bogle I'll touch on. He's since won a couple of times, and last one off 68 and was a good second in a solid race at Beverley on Monday, and that form was actually franked as well from this Catterick run on the 11th of June, still £3 higher. He ran okay there. He maybe did a bit too much on the front end, but as it turned out, the race was actually okay despite the small field. Uppercase came into this off 68. He then bolted up off 70 in a Class 4 at Epsom, and Tatley Bogle, I've touched on, actually after this race won his next start, beating one of our own horses, Coolry, overhauling him late near the line off 68. Then ran a decent second at Thirsk. This race came too soon, a decent second at Beverley in what was an okay Class 4 of 74. So as it turned out, that race has worked out well. I do not believe there's anything of the calibre of those horses that he has been bumping into in all of his runs around this course this season. Like I said, his markers dropped, headgear chains which may work the oracle, and importantly that drop into Class 6. The only slight niggle, if he does run poorly, is possibly the ground. He has ran very well and won on Good to Firm. His last such Good to Firm win was in August 24, but it was around here. You could argue some of his better efforts recently have come with a bit more ease in the ground. However, given his past history in winning form and place form on Good to Firm, at 4-1 in this field, I didn't want to put me off. The other thing, of course, is he does arrive here on the back of a duffer. It's very rare for him to run a very bad race, so I'm just going to put a line through that as an off day for whatever reason. No idea why he kind of went backwards there. I can't think it was the ground. If it is the case that he only wants Good to Firm is far too quick now, clearly he might go backwards under pressure late on today. But like I said, given all the boxes he ticks, given he's a class dropper, he's performed at a higher class, that hot form, his course and distance form, I was happy to dive in at 4-1. The pace is interesting. If I just sort it by draw, he's drawn in 4. Number one's usually held up. He doesn't have to lead, although I think he enjoys it. It might depend on what Ideal Guest does, who does like to go forward as well, but is stepping up in trip, or back up in trip, I should say, from recent efforts. So maybe they won't go blasting out fully. I suspect he will clear Good Karma potentially and might just sit in second behind Ideal Guest or upsides, or if going a good pace, David might blast him out, try and put on the brakes and hope that one of these two, especially Ideal Guest, doesn't take him on. But you can see the stats here over this course and distance on Good to Firm. Ideally, you need to be leading or prominent. You can see the percentages there, the profit to Betfair SP. And, you know, that is the place to be, and he should be there. So that's another box ticked for me. And yeah, that was that really. For all those reasons, he was a bet for me. King's Merchant is interesting. He drops in class as well. He can be held up out the rear, which I never like too much around here, especially in a smaller field. He will need those leaders to go too hard and come back, which isn't impossible, but that tactical setup and nature was kind of why I wanted to take him on. Good Karma's a decent Class 6 horse, but only at Class 6. And like I said, Vince the Prince has run well. He's won at higher classes, and he's been performing around here this season in hot form races in Class 5s, which makes me hope that he may have a class edge. But Good Karma has clearly been running well also. He can race prominently and up there. Hopefully those three I touched on from the pace map don't kill each other on the front, and they're sensible, but we shall see. But hopefully, like I said, Vince has a class edge. And the similar comments to Ideal Guest. Decent last time out winner at Pontefract. He has won over 7 furlongs, but he very much on recent evidence looks a Class 3 horse. He's up £3. That race hasn't worked out well yet. 7 runners have come out of it. None of them have won or placed. I suppose that put me off a little bit on that regard. Like I said, he's up £3. He had a £5 claimer on that day as well. No such claimer today, so I suppose you could view it as an £8 rise in that sense. Was a decent Racing Post rating from that mark. He is generally consistent. He's a solid horse for this grade, but like I said, it's that class angle and class dropping for Vince with all that form, which ticks those boxes for me against those. I didn't really like the bottom three for various reasons. Gressington's interesting to some degree, simply because he is chucked in on old form, but he hasn't won for, he won in December. He hasn't won on turf. His last turf win was back in September 24. He clearly is very well handicapped, and he did win off 71 at Newcastle, like I said, in December. I don't know whether they've been getting his mark down. There's been some headgear changes. They are back over 7 here. He just doesn't seem to have fired yet this season. Again, he can be ridden more patiently, and I don't really like that around here, given that pace map. But if he did keep in touch and they did go too hard, he certainly is very well handicapped to run a big race. But yeah, for those various reasons touched on, Vince the Prince at 4-1 was the one for me in this Class 6. And yeah, fingers crossed he can run his usual consistent Catterick race over this distance, and he won't be very far away if he does. Best of luck if following me in. Cheers.